All right, Math 1, 7.6, substitution. So this one we're going to be dealing with, just like how we did 7.5, the previous one, we're going to be plugging something in to get an answer. The only difference is that these might not have one of them already solved. Like in number 1, you can see that they're not already solved. What we're going to have to start off doing is we're going to have to get an x equals or a y equals. So we pick one and we decide, well, which one do we think would be easier to solve? And both of these look like they would be pretty easy to solve, but let's do number 2, or the bottom one. So I'm just going to copy it down. I've got 4x plus 4y equals 0. If I subtract 4y from both sides, I'm going to have 4x equals negative 4y. I divide by 4, and x equals negative y. So I'm going to plug this into my y up there. Oh, excuse me, into my x. Sorry. Into my x, right? I have an x equals, I need to plug it into my x equals. So I'm going to have 4 times a negative y plus 8y equals 0. So negative 4y plus 4y is 0. Oh, plus 8y, good grief. 4y is 0, so y is going to be 0. And if I look over here at x equals negative y, I know that x is going to be 0 as well. This one's a little bit of a unique problem. And we have our solution as 0, 0. All right, again, that was a slightly unique problem. We'll move on to number 2 and see a little bit different. Number 2, this one should look a whole lot like what we had in the previous section. It's kind of easier. It has a y equals, so we already know that y equals negative 4, and we can plug that into the bottom one to get our answer. So I'm going to have, well, 3x minus 6 times negative 4 equals 3. So 3x plus 24 equals 3. 3x is negative 21, and x is negative 7. Together, they make the point negative 7, negative 4. Again, that problem should look very similar to what you had on the last section's homework. Number 3 is the first normal problem on this page. So we have to make a decision on number 3. Which equation are we going to solve? And which variable do we solve for? I'm looking at both of them. I'm not seeing one that looks a whole lot easier. So I'm just going to pick the top one. I'm going to use the top one. And then we also have to make the decision which variable are we wanting to solve for. Sometimes it's very obvious which one would be easier. This one, it doesn't look like one of them would be much easier than the other. So I'm just going to pick the y. So I'm going to solve for y. I'm going to add the x over. I'm going to have 3y equals 4x minus 2. So y is equal to 4/3 x minus 2/3. Something to notice here is that sometimes we will end up having a bunch of fractions in this problem. That's just the way that it's going to work. So we use the top equation to get a y equals. So we need to plug the y equals into the bottom equation. You don't plug it back into the same one, you have to plug it into the other one. So I'm going to have, I'll do this in green, negative 8x plus 6, and then I'm going to open my parentheses, 4/3 x minus 2/3 equals 3. All right, I distribute my 6. I'm going to have, well, negative 8x plus, well, 6 and 3 cancel to be 2. 2 times 4 is 8. Again, 6 and 3 cancel to be a 2, so I get negative 4. Negative 8 and positive 8 gives me 0x, so I'm left with negative 4 equals 3. This is a special case scenario again. Negative 4 equals 3. Negative 4 does not equal 3. So this is one of those special case scenarios where we say no solution. right? And graphically what that means that these two lines are parallel. So moving on to number 4. This is a good problem. For starters, we need to look which equation do we want to solve and which variable in the equation do we want to solve for. To me, I look for something with a coefficient of 1, right? This y here has a coefficient of 1, so I think that would be pretty easy to solve for. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to solve for y in the top equation. That means I'm going to have to add the 7x to the other side. So I'm going to have y equals 7x minus 1. And now I'm going to plug this into the y down there. So I'm going to have negative 7x plus 5 parenthesis 7x minus 1 equals 23. So negative 7x plus 35x minus 5 equals 23. What I did there is I distributed that 5. If I take 35 minus 7, I get 28. So 28x minus 5 equals 23. This gives me 28x equals 28, and x equals 1. Now, we need to take our x equals, and I normally would like to plug into the original equations, but in this case, I think I'm going to use the new one, the one that I have right here, the y there, because I think it would be a whole lot easier to plug it in there. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to plug them in there. So I'm going to have y equals 7 times 1 minus 1, 7 minus 1, 6. So I'm going to be left with the point 1, 6. All right, that's number 4. Moving on, number 5. Again, there's one of these equations, or one of the variables in these equations, that looks like it would be a whole lot easier to solve than the other ones. And I'm talking about this negative y right there. I think that would be really easy to solve for. So I'm going to take this top equation, and I'm going to, well, what do I want to do? I'll add y to get it to the right side so that it goes positive. So negative 5x equals y minus 3. Right? I added it to the right side because I wanted a positive y. I'll add 3 to both sides. So I'm going to have 3 minus 5x equals y. And I think I've said this before, but there are all kinds of ways to do these problems. If you don't do it the same way that I do, that's okay. You just have to make sure you get the same answer, right? So here's going to plug into right there. So I'm going to have 4x minus 2 times the quantity 3 minus 5x equals 22. I distribute my 2 here, and I get 4x minus 6 plus 10x equals 22. My x's go together to be 14x minus 6 equals 22. I put my 6 on the right side, and I say, well, 14x equals 28. I divide by 14, and x equals 2. Again, I'm going to take this x, and I'm going to plug it into that one there, because I think that would be a lot easier. This is y equals 3 minus 5 times 2, 3 minus 10, which is negative 7. So my final answer is 2, negative 7. All right. Number 6. This is a nice problem. We've already got y equals 6. Now there's also a little bit of a trick that we could do here, and this trick works on all of the different problems, but this one's a good way to show it. If you notice that all these numbers here could be divided by the same thing, you can do that and make them all smaller. So I'm going to divide everything by 2, and I get x plus y equals 12. Right? That makes it just a little bit easier whenever you go to plug in and solve. Looking back at number 5, we could have done that right here with the 4x, 2y, and 22. We could have divided everything by 2, and our numbers would have been a little bit smaller, and they would have been a little bit easier to deal with. I didn't do that in number 5 because I wanted to make sure we all saw how to do that, how to do it by default, or how to do it whenever it's not a special case scenario. But if you ever recognize that you can divide by 2 or 3 or 5, whatever it is, you're welcome to do that. I think that makes it a lot easier whenever I try to do them in my head. So I'm going to take this 6 and I'm going to plug it into that y. So I'm going to have x plus 6 equals 12 and x equals 6. So I have the point 6, 6. Right, pretty easy. And notice that by dividing by 2 at the very beginning, we made the work over here a little bit shorter, right? Because we would have had to multiply and then divide by 2 and things. I think it's useful. You don't have to do it. You're welcome to do it, though. Number 7. I'm going to solve for this y right here. I think it would be the easiest thing to solve for. So I'm going to say, well, y equals, I'm going to subtract my x to the other side, so negative 4x minus 3. And now I'm going to plug in this into right there. So 7x plus 2 parentheses negative 4x minus 3 equals negative 5. I'm going to distribute my 2. So 7x minus 8x minus 6 equals negative 5. This gives me negative 1x, and I'm also going to add my 6 over to the other side. That gives me a 1 on the right side, and x has to be negative 1. All right, I'm going to take this guy here and plug him in up there. So I'm going to say, well, y equals negative 4 times negative 1 minus 3. So y equals, what is that going to be? 4 minus 3, and y equals 1. So my final answer will be negative 1, 1. All right, number 8, last one. All right, to me, the easiest thing to solve for here would be this x, because it has a coefficient of 1. I wouldn't have to divide by anything. So this, if I rewrite it, I'm going to have x equals, I add my 6y to the right side, and I have 6y minus 20. This will go into that x there, and I get 4 times 6y minus 20 plus 5y equals 7. So 24 minus 80 plus 5y is 7. Oop, this is 24y, excuse me. So I add those up. My y's go together and give me 29y equals 87. I added my 80 to the other side. And what is 87 divided by 29? 3. So y is equal to 3. Now I'm going to take this and plug into this equation over here, and I'm going to say, well, x equals 6 times 3 minus 20. So x equals 18 minus 20, negative 2. So I write that as a point. I have the point negative 2, 3. All right, there we are.